Well, let's begin this webinar. If everyone is ready, it will be okay. Well, so hello everyone. Thank you to be here this morning for this webinar. So I'm very pleased to welcome all of you connected across Europe for this webinar today that will deal with the challenges faced by the manufacturing sector in the light of the multiple crises that we all know right now, those meaning climate change, sanitary crisis, and unfortunately war in Ukraine. All these crises call for enormous efforts and changes for industry that need to receive stronger and better support. I just saw that I need to share my screen because you need to see the first slide. I think it is better for everyone now. So I said, yeah. No, I'm also very pleased to have the opportunity today of this webinar to put into highlight some of the European networks and partnerships which with CIMES is working regularly with to make projects, find opportunities, and use the roadmap to improve its own way of working. And finally, a more personal message. I'm very pleased to organize this webinar on 9th of May, which is Europe Day today, celebrating the famous speech of Robert Schuman that launched in a kind of way the great European adventure we are all living. At this level, let's hope this webinar is a good way to remind that collaboration and cooperation allow concrete achievements that have positive impacts for the entire Union. Making the bonds closer will make us all stronger. So let's start this webinar now. Some instructions before starting. So just to remind all of you, this webinar is recorded, so it will be distributed to all of you, to all the participants after some formatting work. Please turn off your microphone during the intervention. Please turn off also your camera. Just the speaker will have the camera on while speaking. And if you have any question, feel free to use the chat during the intervention. And if you wish to react longer and intervene and take part in the webinar orally, please use the hands raised option that you will find on top of your screen, and we will give you the floor to ask your question. After each intervention, we will give the floor to 1 or 2 people maximum in order to keep the webinar in the foreseen schedule. But if we have more questions and if you want to interact with one of the speakers, please send me your question by email and I will put you in touch with the speaker you want. Also, just something for you to know, this webinar is organized in the context of the Clermont Innovation Week 2022, which is an annual highlight devoted to Clermont Auvergne Métropole stakeholders in science, research and innovation. So there are more than 60 events organized in 10 days. It's a big event in Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes dedicated to innovation and research. This webinar is organized by CIMES Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes. Most of you know us because I know that we have most of our partners connected today. CIMES is a French pôle de compétitivité dedicated to manufacturing and production performance. We have a bit more than 250 direct members, but we have an enlarged ecosystem composed of more than 500 organizations. We have a cross-sectoral approach, meaning that we are working with different sectors in industry. We are located in Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes and Nouvelle-Aquitaine, which are 2 of the biggest regions in France. We are leading the industry of the future community in Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes. And in Nouvelle-Aquitaine, our activity is essentially turned around forestry and wood industry. We are partner of several European projects and networks that you can find on the website. I won't detail everything this morning. The thematic roadmap is built around 3 main pillars. The first one is engineering and manufacturing for materials and surfaces, with a big activity concerning metallic additive manufacturing. The second pillar is about integrated robotics, and the third one and last one is optimized engineering for sustainable system. We have a really recent initiative that we have developed last year, which is Green CIMES. We are developing an approach around green manufacturing to meet the resilience needs expressed by our companies. So we launched the first edition, as I said, in September 2021, and we will continue this initiative this year with a new round of events and workshops in September 2022. Just as a reminder, the agenda of today's webinar. The first part will be dedicated to digital transition, the second one to green transition, and the third one will be an open discussion around Industry 5.0. So let's start with my colleague Mathilde Bruyère, which is national contact point for industry in France, and she will give us some points of context with this short and quick introduction. Please, Mathilde, up to you now.
Hello, thank you, Loïc. Hello, everyone. So I will start this webinar. It's a big role. I am national contact point for Horizon Europe industry in France. So I was asked by Loïc to present you the European orientation and strategy for industry. Next slide, please. And the next one. So what we can say as a start is that there is really an overarching concept in the European public policies since 2019, which has been influencing industry since then, and also it sets the scenes for the coming years. So this concept is the twin transitions, that is the transition for a green and digital manufacturing, digital technologies which support the transitions for the climate neutral industry and also the competitiveness of the European economy. This concept has been introduced by the European Green Deal, and it has been declined in different strategies later on. We can say that there are 3 strategic orientations: transforming the European industry for a clean, climate neutral, circular and competitive economy, as just said. Also guaranteeing the European global industrial leadership and strategic autonomy, but also shaping technologies and innovation that adapt to our society and our way of life. That is a transition also for the people. If we have a more precise look at the Green Deal, or next slide. It was launched by Ursula von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, late 2019. It is the strategy of the European Union to answer, to address its commitment towards the objectives set in the Paris Agreement. So it is the plan of the European Commission for a transition toward a green economy. And it aims at transforming European society and economy in different areas. So we have climate, environment, energy, transport, industry, agriculture, and sustainable finance. But you can see that in all of this area, manufacturing can be impacted directly or indirectly. This Green Deal is declined in different type of measures. First of all, we have an adjustment into the law in the European regulation with the package Fit to 55, which means a reduction of polluting gases by 2030. And it sets, for example, revision of quota emission exchange system, new or revised directives for renewable energies, energy efficiency, but also social fund for the climate. Apart from regulation, we also have European strategies, among them the industrial one, but also a declination, a translation into the research programs funded directly or indirectly by the Commission. On the next slide, you have a short summary of what is the strategy for the digital part, so shaping Europeans' digital future. It has 3 pillars: technology that works for the people, a fair and competitive digital economy, open, democratic and sustainable society. And so this transformation is aimed at benefiting everyone, citizens, but also businesses and environment. And this is where it is mostly interesting for us. As for today, for our objectives of today, it is meant to open up new opportunities for businesses, encourage the development of trustworthy technologies, enable vibrant and sustainable economy, and help fight climate change and achieve green transition. A second strategy, which declines the Green Deal, is mostly interesting for manufacturing, as it is the European industrial strategy. It was adopted in the coming months after the Green Deal, so March 2020. And its objective is to lead the twin transition towards climate neutrality and digital leadership. It is outlined by 3 drivers, so global competition, climate neutrality, and digital future. And it is underpinned by a set of interconnected and reinforcing elements. So industry, deeper, more digital single market, upholding a global level playing field, shift to climate neutrality, building a more circular economy, embedding industrial innovation, skilling and reskilling, and also investment and financing of the transition. It is important to note that this strategy has been updated after the COVID crisis, and it still makes sense also with the war in Ukraine, to answer the questions regarding resilience of the industry, but also European industry sovereignty, especially strategic autonomy in key technologies and access to raw materials, and still, again, to accelerate the twin transition. Now, if we go into the translation of this Green Deal into the European Research and Innovation Programme, we can see that most of the programs which are financed directly or indirectly by the Commission are impacted by the objectives set in these strategies. So, of course, we have the Horizon Europe program, which is the main one, but also other programs such as RFCS, which is the program funding projects in clean steel, for example, Innovation Fund, which funds investment for decarbonation, the LIFE program, which is for the deployment of technologies for the environment. So you see that a lot of programs in which manufacturing sector can be interested are impacted by these strategies. They also are influenced by the partnerships between the Commission and the industrial community. So these are institutional partnerships which have been set to discuss roadmaps and research agendas which have an influence in the preparation, especially of Horizon Europe. So these partnerships, you can see in the gray part, will elaborate suggestion of topics for the research program. And one of them is Made in Europe. Here you have an overview of the part of Horizon Europe, which is dedicated to digital industry and space. You see how it is structured. So we have 6 destinations, and 4 of them are mostly interesting for the manufacturing sector. The first 2 sections are really destined to the industry. And you see here, Made in Europe has a clear influence on the one called climate neutral, circular and digitized production. We will see topics clearly marked as Made in Europe topics here. We also have topics for the resilience of industry in Destination 2. We have topics for digital and emerging technologies in Destination 4. And we also have approaches for digital and industrial technologies with a human focus in Destination 6. If we now have a look at how this is concretely represented in the topics of Cluster 4, how we find manufacturing topics here. We have dedicated subparts of the program for in which we find the Made in Europe topics. So we have a section called Green, Flexible and Advanced Manufacturing, in which we will find subjects such as AI, robotics and smart manufacturing, zero defect, zero waste, laser technologies, manufacturing technologies for bio-based materials, modular manufacturing, mass customization, products with functional surfaces. And there is also a section called Advanced Digital Technologies for Manufacturing. And in this one, we will find digital tools for sustainable and agile production, especially data, IoT. I can see what I wrote. Robotics, sensors, additive manufacturing, cybersecurity, standardization, circularity, life cycle. These are the topics which we could find in the program for 2021-2022 program. We will probably find topics very linked to this in the next program, 2003-2004. And what is new in 2003-2004, we can note that there is a lot of support for resilience, manufacturing as a service, and decentralized manufacturing, topics which will come out in this new program. We also have other related subjects besides these 2 sections. So you will find in the other parts of the Cluster 4 resilience, support to the resilience of EU businesses, and especially twin transition of SMEs, circular economy, materials, again, AI, data and robotics for the optimization of industry, the use of extended reality in industry, and also standards. We can note too that in the human focus part, so in section 6, I mentioned before, there is the new semantic of Industry 5.0, which has been introduced for this program. I will finish these slides by giving you the timing for the next program. So you know probably that the program for 21-22 is now closed, apart for 8 topics which are still open, and among them topics on AI, data and robotics. And for 2003-2004, we know that the program will be published very probably by end of 2022. For 2023, the deadlines will be probably spring, and the project then should start by the end of the year. And it will be the same timing for the 24 topics, so deadline in spring and project start end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mathilde, for this introduction. Sorry. Are there some questions for Mathilde or not? If there's no question, we will start the webinar. So now let's move on with the first part of the webinar dedicated to digital transition. Digital technologies are everywhere, or almost everywhere, but some sectors still need to be accompanied a bit more to point out and adopt the right technologies answering to their specific needs. Digital could seem to be the quick fix to answer manufacturing challenges. But sometimes companies can feel overwhelmed by the endless number of solutions on the shelf, available on the shelf, creating a need that did not exist beforehand. Another way of seeing things is to start from the specific needs and go to the right solution that may be digital. Both approaches have benefits and limits. So let's discuss all of this with our two first speakers, Maria Roca from I4MS and Virle de Graaf from the S3 platform Smart Sensors for Agrifood. They will introduce their respective network and explain how their activities lead to a better digitization of industry. So let's start with Maria, if you're here.
Yep, I'm here.
Hello, Maria. Thank you to be here this morning, and it's up to you now for your presentation.
Okay, let me put my timer on. So I will start with a brief presentation about my organization. We are Funding Box. Our company is the leading organization of a European project that is called I4MS. I4MS is ICT for manufacturing SMEs and is a project funded by the European Commission. So if you go to the next slide, just for those that are not familiar with what Funding Box does, we are a company that connects investors, entrepreneurs, and startups and SMEs with funding opportunities. And of course, also we deal with all the services that are related with digital innovation hubs. So if you go to the next slide, the sectors that we are covering and where you could find support, financial support or other type of services are AR manufacturing, I just will mention some of them, digital innovation hub and Internet of Things. So if you are curious to know more about what are the funding opportunities related to this sector, please don't hesitate to visit our website. But going to the topic of today's webinar, as I mentioned, I4MS is an initiative funded by the European Commission. It started already in 2013, and we are now at the fourth phase of I4MS. So at the beginning, the main driver of the I4MS program was to support the manufacturing sector. It was very clear for the European Commission that there is a need to support the manufacturing sector to really take advantage of the digital technologies. And if you go to the next slide, the main objective of I4MS is, to support manufacturing companies to test before invest. Usually manufacturing companies are supported by technology providers and of course the different projects that are responsible of offering these funding opportunities together with training, mentorship and access to physical and virtual technology platforms. I think that what Loic mentioned, at the end of the day, there are plenty of services or platforms or technologies that manufacturing companies could be taking advantage of, but sometimes they also need our support, well, different European projects, also the support from the digital innovation hubs or organizations such as CIMES. So organizations that at the end of the day are in contact with the SMEs and can be able to support them in choosing which is the best technology for them. So that's a little bit the main objective of I4MS. Therefore, if we go to the next slide, the European Commission selected what are the main 4 technological topics that are key for the manufacturing sector. So those are digital twins, human-robot interaction, artificial intelligence, and additive manufacturing. And as you can see, there are different logos next to the different technologies. This is because each of the technologies are supported by 2 or 1 different European projects. Okay, so at the end of the day, I4MS is an initiative, an umbrella initiative that we give support to these 8 different projects that are currently running in the phase 4 and that will be distributing 35 million between 2020 and 2022. So my main role is to, disseminate what these different projects are doing, also encourage SMEs to apply and participate in events like this to raise awareness about what the I4MS is doing. So for those that are curious to know a little bit how is the funding scheme working in I4MS, if we go to the next slide, I have just, included a small calendar. You can find more detailed information about each of the open calls in the I4MS website. I encourage you to visit it and to subscribe to the newsletter to be, informed when an open call is open. And also, since the slides will be available for you, I won't present them, but you will find, some summary of the different open calls. But as you can see, there are opportunities not only for SMEs, also for the IHs. For instance, you can see in the case of Change to Twin, there is an expression of interest currently open for the IHs that would like also to gain experiences supporting SMEs in the uptake of digital twins. So it's also an opportunity for the IHs to increase their portfolio of services and be able to support better the SMEs. But I was asked by Loic to explain you a little bit what are the lessons learned that we at I4MS have found. One thing that I mentioned based on the first slide when he was introducing us is that at the end of the day, I4MS is a technology pool initiative. So it means that the different projects, they have different technology offerings, solutions, and those are offered to the different SMEs. So what we are trying to do also is, to raise awareness about the different technologies that are available, and also make sure that they are going to use. So just I will present now very briefly the 5 main lessons learned that I think we have done we have found out throughout the experience in I4MS. First of all, that the technology insertion or technology development is very different across different European countries. We need to improve the geographical coverage of the use of the technology, because at the end of the day, if we think as Europe being one and united region, we also need to support those regions that are still lagging behind. Then I will show you some slides later, also to raise awareness of SMEs, because there's a lot of information about the technologies, but sometimes it's also difficult for SMEs to understand what is the benefit of this solution. So it's not only a solution that, it will decrease your energy consumption by 40%. Okay, that's fine. That's great. Sounds good. But how? What are the investments that I need to do to really reach out these improvements? So we also need to make sure that the SMEs understand what are the advantages, so that they are more prone to really invest in the technologies afterwards. Next one is to consider SMEs' interest. Is also important, that we don't leave the SMEs aside from our discussions. We need to include them to understand what is the real pains, what they need, what is their main interest. And I will show you some slides later for you to, to make us think about this. The next one is the skills mismatches. I think this was mentioned by Matilde already. This is also one of the Made in Europe objective, and also in the Digital Europe program. What is important is that we also need to reskill our workforce to be able to use the technologies. And finally is to collaborate with the ecosystem. I think this is something that at European level we are very used to it. But it's true that there are plenty of initiatives that are working perhaps on the same field or on the same technologies. So I think events like this one are important to make sure that we know each other, that we can see if there are some synergies that at the end of the day will have a benefit on the SMEs and the industry, the industrial sector. So if we go to the coverage, to geographical coverage, just for you to understand, what we have found out is that in I4MS, as I mentioned, we deliver financial support to third parties. So it means small grants for SMEs to test the different technologies. And we found out that there are many applicants and many projects that has been funded in Italy, Spain, and Germany. But you know, there are still a lot of applicants, as you can see in the image on the right. They are coming from countries, for instance, from Romania and the Czech Republic and so on. But at the end of the day, those projects are not funded. So we really need to think about this. Of course, competing at European level might be difficult, but also I think is something maybe that the digital innovation hubs can improve. You know, how SMEs perceive or how they apply to these opportunities, because you know these opportunities are very good opportunities for SMEs to start with European funding and test the technologies. And the next one is the need to raise awareness. You can go to the next one. I put it every time. So what we also found out that there are plenty of information, many websites, many links, especially in I4MS, that we have 8 different projects with different open calls. So we try to create the I4MS online community where we give updated information, and also participants have the possibility to network. So next one. Also about the network of contact points, and I really thankful to CIMES and Loic to invite us to this event, because they are I4MS contact points. Is a network of VIHs that is supporting I4MS in the widespread of information, because at the end of the day, organizations like yours are the ones that are in real contact with the SMEs. So we leverage on your own network to offer information about the different funding and opportunities that are available. Next one. And along this last year, what we have improved is that, as you can see in the map, when we started this 4th phase in June 2020, our coverage was was not so widespread across Europe, and now we have, we can say, almost present in all European countries, and in some countries with very high presence, which we are very proud of. Next one. About the interest of the SMEs, what we found out is that what they think is that they are not, that the SMEs cannot really take advantage of the digitalization, that we need to do more awareness. Also, what they said is that there are different organizations that approach them with different offers, and sometimes it's difficult for them to understand what is, to whom they should contact. Of course, the skills mismatches and the lack of appropriate funding. And then, of course, the reach to the market. And other challenge when SMEs are looking for funding is that sometimes their needs do not match with the funding available. And I think, this is an exercise in the case of what Funding Box does, that we are mainly dealing with S3P funding. So it means small grants for SMEs, is that we really need to improve our communication towards the SMEs, because of course those are important opportunities for the SMEs, that to get the money, but of course money is not all for SMEs. So we need to really think, when we approach SMEs, what are their needs and how these funding opportunities can support them in their digital transformation process. Next one. Sorry if I'm going too quick, but also what we have also tried to do is to establish like a roadmap for the SMEs, that we have created a brokering system that is a very easy to fill in questionnaire with their needs, and after this we try to give them information, targeted information to to what their needs. And what we found out, next one, what we found out is that They were very interested in networking opportunities, of course in funding too, but their main priority when they apply to the I4MS Brookings is because they are interested in networking. They are interested in knowing other SMEs. So that's why we decided also to organize some different webinars where they can also network, because at the end of the day, what we want, I need to finish my presentation. So what we try to do also is to put them in contact. Of course, maybe the first step for them to access to funding is not the funding itself, but the opportunity to connect with other SMEs, and have and learn from them. So we are, changing a little bit our mindset here. And the next one, about the skills mismatches, just to let you know that we have tried to tackle this by creating a training catalog. We are covering only the technology areas of I4MS because we needed the focus, and we have more than 210 trainings available at the moment that we are updating every month. So in case that you are offering some trainings, you would like them to be showcased there, or you are interested in the training that other organizations are offering, please take a look, because I think it's a very powerful tool that we have created here. And finally, about the collaboration with the ecosystem, one thing that I wanted to mention is that throughout the community, we have reached a very high number of SMEs. So in case that you have opportunities that would like to communicate through the community, I think is a powerful source. Of course, what we are working now is to have a broader European representation from other countries that are still not represented, but also is a good way to get updated information on I4MS activities. And I'm open for questions. Also, I think I've mentioned, but the role of the IHs that is crucial, now with the EDIs, that hopefully we will know the results soon. But I think the IHs have a clear role in supporting the manufacturing industry. Also, not only, for the funding opportunities that are available in European projects such as S3P, but also to put them in contact and, make the SMEs more prone to the changes, and, that they feel that the investments in technology are really worth it. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria, for your presentation and all these very interesting information. Are there some questions for Maria in the chat, or maybe some hand raised? I saw that a mic was up. I can hear a mic open, but okay, if there is no question, if some questions arrive a bit later in your head, do not hesitate to send me an email, and I will send the questions to Maria. Thank you once again, Maria, for your presentation, and then invite all of the participants of this webinar to have a look at the I4MS website and content. Well, thank you. So next presentation, Virle, if you can turn up your mic, and it will be dedicated to the Smart Sensor for Agri-Food S3 platform. Virle, do you want to share your screen, or?
I already started. I don't know if you can see it.
I don't know if it is my screen or yours.
It's the same slide, so I will just check now. If it goes forward, then it's mine.
Do it.
Okay.
It doesn't change for me, but
no.
That's okay, because I was blocked.
Okay.
Up to you now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alic, for the introduction. So my name is Virle de Graaf from Flanders Food. At Flanders Food, I'm a project manager for the world-class food production programs that involve all digitalization projects, but also everything that connects to the human-centered approach. So this will be interesting in the Industry 5.0 discussion. But today I'm here in my capacity of the established office of the Smart Sensor Agri-Food Partnership. As you can see here, this is a partnership that aims to facilitate digitalization of the agri-food industry, but not as a goal in itself, but as a means to become more sustainable and more resilient. And as introduced in the beginning of this webinar, being resilient and being able to respond to foreseeable and unforeseeable challenges is a trait that we should foster and should stimulate in all our companies, being it from the agri-food or being it from other sectors, but more importantly for the agri-food at this moment. So Smart Centers for Agri-Food, it's a smart specialization partnership that was approved and initiated in April 2017, which means that it's already 5 years ago since the first activities were undertaken here. And the ambition of this partnership is to prepare all the agri-food companies to make this leap towards Industry 4.0. But as said, it's not a goal in itself. We advocate a stepwise approach that starts from the challenges and needs of the agri-food companies. But on the other hand, we also want to facilitate the development and access to applicable technologies and digital solutions, and introduce new technologies and inspire and enable companies to use them. So we really want to make this connection to the demand side being the agri-food companies and the supply side being the technology providers, digital solution providers, RTOs, and so on. Because our goal is to make sure that the agri-food system in Europe becomes a more resilient, a more digital and more sustainable agri-food system, which of course links to this twin transition that was discussed in the beginning as well. So what are our objectives? We want to set up a network of interlinked open access living labs as a place to facilitate the implementation of technology and digital solutions in the agri-food industry. And what do we mean by facilitate? We want to connect people. We want to provide network opportunities, inform and create awareness, give demonstrations, training and workshops, all in order to accelerate the implementation. So we focus on technologies that have already reached a higher TRL level, available on the market, on the last stretch to become available. And we want to connect those two sides to make sure that the technologies that are being developed are really fitting to the needs and challenges of food companies. It's not always possible. In many cases, it's not even possible to just take a technology that was developed for another sector and implement it into the food sector, as there are specific requirements regarding food safety. We're working with biological components and so on. This makes it a lot more complicated. We also advocate cross-border collaboration between companies and regional actors, and we want to, as said, develop these cross-European value chains. And more importantly, we want to avoid duplication, but focus on synergies and cross-border collaboration. So that's really at the core of this partnership. By working together, we can accomplish more than when we work alone. Who are the we in this partnership? We have two types of members. We have regular members and associated organizations, and together there are over 40 organizations coming from 17 regions. And you see them here represented on the map. And what do they have, these members, this region in common? We all have a similar smart specialization strategy in mind that we want to develop and implement via collaborating in this partnership. As you can see, we cover regions going from Spain towards all the way up to Finland. And we also include Slovenia, Hungary, Lithuania. So we really have a broad coverage. The network was initiated by Flanders Food, EMEC, and the SP Valley in 2017, and together with Wagewalim, our French-speaking counterpart in the Walloon part of Belgium. But as you can see, we are not the only ones here. It's a large group of cluster organizations, but that's also important. Many of us are cluster organizations. That means that we're really connected to our SMEs, to our company, that we know their needs. And by combining our expertise and our approaches, we can really make the difference on the European scale. I mentioned these living labs in the beginning. How do we see these living labs? We see them as a physical backbone in a digital innovation system. It was mentioned before that it's important to collaborate in the ecosystem. We see these living labs as a central point in the ecosystem where we can connect food companies with technology providers, also with knowledge institutes where they can test and see if a solution is really working for them. also addressing the question, okay, what is the benefit? What is the investment? What is the size of the implementation? Who is the best suitable partner to do this? So that's how we want to connect the entire ecosystem. We also want to connect living labs to other living labs. We have seen this map of all these partners across Europe. In each region, there are these open access innovation spaces, and we also want to connect them with each other. The philosophy behind this is that if a solution cannot be found in one region, they can reach out to other living labs in the network to maybe help so that they can find assistance to help this company with a solution that's maybe available in another region. If it can be found in one region, it's always advisable, but we don't want that each living lab is going to duplicate what they have just maybe 20, 50 kilometers further ahead. But we want to make sure that in this living lab also this synergy and collaboration spirit is really prominent. Because, as I said, we really think that you have the ideal open innovation spaces to foster the collaboration and to speed up this digital transformation. We have developed a stepwise funnel approach to assist companies in their digital transformation process, and it implements 5 steps to success. We want to first, we go from awareness to building the trust, honing this community creation, but then we also validate and test applicable solutions to a certain challenge, help to implement, and then the successful cases can be used to inspire other companies, used as leverage. So as I said in the beginning, we start from existing industry, existing technologies or upcoming technologies. We work via this matchmaking and study visits to get companies to know what the opportunities are, and then we bring them together. We bring the companies together, the food companies together with the technology providers, so they can work collectively on a specific implementation project. It can be a concrete investment project. It can be just 2 companies together. It can be a larger group. It can involve cluster organizations or not. We're really there to assist them and pave the way towards the best suitable approach for their challenge. And then, of course, via the living labs and testimonials, we can feed this funnel again to make sure that we can shift as much as possible of our agri-food companies through this innovation funnel, and in that way connect to this more resilient and sustainable agri-food system. How does a partnership do this? First of all, in 2017, we started up as a group of cluster of organizations with the same vision, but we really felt the need from the beginning onwards to make this collaboration more structured to avoid that after some time this partnership would just dissolve again. So we have developed a partnership agreement that includes a governance, a strategy and implementation roadmap, and it is necessary to guarantee this long-term sustainability of the partnership. It not only sets out the vision and approach, but also structures and divides responsibilities between the different partners. As mentioned, this is done in the beginning. We now feel, after several years of collaborating, that our strategy and implementation roadmap needs an update. Not only because now we have Industry 5.0, we said in the beginning 4.0, we also want to connect more to the Green Deal, to the farm to fork strategy. So we really want to make sure that we are still aligned with the higher level policy strategies that are being implemented, but not forgetting that we want to start from the specific needs of the companies. So how do we collaborate? We have the agreement between the cluster and the RTOs. As mentioned, we have regular members and associated organizations, and each region is also supported by the regional authority. So that we really have the connection to the regional smart specialization strategies. We have a light organization structure. We have a steering committee meeting that includes a board, a chair and a vice chair. Our chair at the moment is Simon Maas from Agri-Food Capital in the Netherlands, and our vice chair is Ana Felgueras from Clusara in Galicia in Spain. And we have different working groups. And my role as Flanders Food, we are the established office, so we're responsible for the interaction with the Commission, with the other partnership, coordinating of meetings, administration and finance. Because we are a paying membership at the moment also, our regular members do pay an annual fee to make all the activities of the cluster possible. I mentioned these working groups. We have one working group on communication for the branding and partnership development of the communication tools. We also present at Twitter and LinkedIn. We have a working group on technology intelligence. As said, it follows up the technological side of the partnership. It also keeps a close eye on everything that's happening in digital Europe and everything that's going to happen with the network of European digital innovation hubs. Many of our cluster partners are involved in one or more projects that are being submitted in the European Digital Innovation Hub call, and I believe that the results will be out by the end of the month. And we also collect inspirational cases on how specific technologies are being implemented to, for instance, get a company more insight in their energy consumption, make sure that they produce less waste, that they can better match the demand of, we had a case in a project that they can better connect the demand of bakery products with the actual production, so to avoid losses and so on. And we are collecting these cases on our website as well, so that companies give a better feeling what a specific technology can do for them. And we have a working group on project generation. As you can hear here, this is a thematic smart specialization platform. But to implement our strategy, we're always on the lookout for relevant calls and topics in European calls to be able to develop and implement this roadmap. And that is done in its working group project generation. So here, all partners really take up an active role in the partnership. It's not only Flanders Food Established Office, it's really all partners. Each working group has a working group chair, and they're also members of the board of the partnership. So far, we have 3 approved projects. The first of all was Consensus, the COSME project that started in 2018 and ran until 2020. And here we were really able to develop our strategy to make the first step toward this EU network of connected living labs. We organized study visits, matchmaking, demo cases, and it was really the step up towards a bigger project, S3 Food and InnoSip project, which will be ending end of September. Our final event is coming up beginning of September. And there we have a voucher scheme for SMEs. We had 5 million euros in total, and 79% is being used for SME support, direct voucher support. So as was mentioned by Maria, this funding to third parties that we also did here, and we had 2.8 million available in 2 open calls. And what we saw here, that our stepwise approach and connecting digital transformation to the challenge of the food companies was really spot on. We had over 300 applications from all the regions involved in S3 Food Partnership, but there was only budget to fund like 58 of the successful ones. And this really did not mean that only 58 were good projects. It was just that we did not have sufficient budget to fund all the good ones. So there really is a lot going on in the agri-food companies towards finding new solutions for their challenges, working with AI, working with robotics, working with all new tools, camera inspection of their production lines to improve quality. So a lot is going on there. And then there's a new project that will be starting in September, that is focusing on expanding this European digital agri-food acceleration ecosystem. So David's mission is, well, Consensus was about setting up the strategy of the partnership. S3 Food was providing financial support to companies, food companies, technology providers to work together towards concrete digital solutions for the challenge of the agri-food companies. Here we're going to look how can we develop high quality business acceleration services. We are connecting different type of regions as well here. Also looking at startups and scale-ups, and it's a lot about knowledge exchange to strengthen the partners in the project as well. And we have in this project 10 organizations covering 11 regions and 5 countries. And the ones put in bold are regular members of the partnership, and Valorial is also included, and that's an associated member. So as you can see here, it's not always only partnership members that are in a project like this. We always look for the best connections to strengthen these proposals as well. And we set ourselves a goal each year to have at least 4 to 5 European projects submitted. getting them approved is of course something that we don't have in hand completely, but we are confident that we can, by selecting the good calls and working on this connection between parties, that we can really have a sustainable partnership that can go on for many more years. How far are we on the network of living labs? As you can see here, this map, I mentioned the first two projects. All these regions were included in the S3 Food project, and the blue ones were also in the Consensus project. And we use this project to identify the potential living labs in their regions, and we developed a handbook on how they can operate and how they can collaborate. This is just a first strategic exercise that we did to set out these rules, how we think it should be best organized. But what we did is we collected fact sheets about all these living labs, and they are also available to see which living lab in which region has which specific technological capacity. We also connected living labs that were specialized in Industry 4.0 technologies with living labs connected more into the food processing activities. And we organized study visits to several of these living labs where we could combine, when we could take food companies as well as technology providers to see. Of course, when COVID hit, we had to go to digital visits, which is not the same, but before COVID, we did have the opportunity to have a visit to ADIF that was organized by CIMES. So it really helps to inspire companies and cluster organizations alike. I have no idea about my timing, but I think I've used up pretty much about it. So thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions later on, you will be able to find me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Veerle, for the presentation and these really interesting information regarding concrete achievement for the agri-food sector in Europe. So let's move, if there's some question for Veerle, I don't see any hands or any questions in the chat. As for Maria, if you have some questions afterwards, do not hesitate to send them to me. There's one question. Veerle.
Yeah.
I will give you, I think it's Thomas. Thomas, if you want to open your mic and ask your question directly to Veerle.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Thanks. You were talking about the open access aspect of your living lab. Do you mean by that the data which are produced in the living lab?
No, it's open access, as companies can go there with a support question. Technology providers can go there with the technology to demonstrate. So it's open access. Everyone can come there. It does not mean that it's for free, but it just means that these organizations are willing to support whoever comes with a concrete question. So it's not open access on data. It's open access on, you can come and test and validate specific technologies that are available there.
So you're giving access to tools and equipment to companies which are interested in
yeah, and it's not okay, here is a technology, go ahead. No, it's supported access. For instance, we have in Flanders the food pilot, and when you have as a food company a specific request, they do this intake to see, okay, what is your real question and what is the best plan to address your solution? Do we have everything in-house, or do you have to connect with a specific technology provider? And then they set up this testing plan. And then there is somebody available that's familiar with a certain technology to help the company to go through this system. So for instance, if it's a dairy company who says, okay, I have a regular UHT processing, but I really want to know how all these temperatures are being affecting my product. Okay, they have a UHT device ready that has multiple temperature sensors inside. They can really have all these temperature diagram, and then they can test different programs, different products. It's the company that then provides the product, but it's under the living lab facility who sets up the experiments and does the interpretation and can give specific guidance.
So company doesn't need to be implied in a project of the...
No, then it just, in Belgium and in Flanders, you have this formula of a SME project, and it's just a small one. when you can get funding from the Flemish government as well. But it's not, you don't have to be in a big project. You can just come with one question, and then they said, okay, we set up this testing experiment for you. That's of course how it works in Flanders. In other living labs, it could work a little bit different, but the general idea is the same. A company comes with a question, or you have a certain technology that you can say, okay, if you really want to see that technology at work, you can contact this organization. As cluster parties, we can facilitate this first contact. But then it's just on one-on-one basis between the company and the living lab, what's the best suitable way to approach. You don't need to be involved in a large project. It's more like a kind of consultancy setup
They
that
can
you
do
can
it for
have
themselves and keep the results only for the company.
Yes, that can be it. In many times, almost every test that's being done there is on a confidential basis. So there is no need of obligation to give anything away on confidential outcomes of this type of testings.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for the questions and the answer, Virle. So I propose to go on and to continue with the second part of the webinar, which is dedicated to the green transition. So the first work engaged by the 2019 European Commission was the Green Deal, highlighting the fact that the green transition is the keystone of the current and future strategies and policies. Green transition must now go back to the territories and materialize in industrial practices. For some organizations and companies, especially the most traditional ones, the ambition is a real revolution that upsets method, processes, and skills. Everything must be reviewed in the light of this ambition to remain competitive and to remain in line with current consumer expectations. The role of clusters, pôles de compétitivité, and European networks and partnerships which are in daily contact with these companies to support them in their innovation initiatives must be to ensure that this revolution is ultimately only a simple evolution. Let's discuss all of this with two new speakers, Chris Decubert from EFFRA and Joël Rosenberg from EIT Manufacturing. Let's see how these two organizations, well embedded in the European bubble, have transformed green transition into concrete opportunities for companies. So, Chris, you will be the first one to speak. Thank you to be here this morning. I will share my screen and I will share your presentation. And feel free to tell me when you need to go to the next slide.
I will. So, good morning to everybody. Chris Decubert for EFFRA, the European Factories of the Future Research Association. Next slide, please. So, yes, the green transition, or in the context of the Made in Europe partnership, also referred to as the twin transition, digital, green. But just a few words about EFFRA itself. EFFRA is the association that is the partner to the European Union / the European Commission in what used to be well, it still is through the projects, the Factories of the Future partnership, which started in FP7, went across the Horizon 2020 era, and now is entering the Horizon Europe era through Made in Europe, the Made in Europe partnership. So the role of EFFRA is to be, the partnership association representing the industrial and research community in the area of manufacturing. One of the things that needs to be done there is then to have a strategic research and innovation agenda to, via consultations, express the priorities and the requirements in terms to with regard to research and innovation in manufacturing, and have this as one of the essential inputs to the European Commission for issuing the calls for proposals, which are embedded within the regular framework program. So that's basically what we do as an association, and of course around that create awareness about the program, and also about the outcome of projects and results. I will come back to that later. So you see there on that slide, and I will actually start also my timer in order to keep track of time myself. You see there this timeline of ESIR being put forward. I can say that with respect to the green transition, as of the start, environmental sustainability, next to, you can say, the economic sustainability, the social sustainability, that's the three pillars, one of the baselines of the partnership from the start. So it's like an evolution. So definitely environmental sustainability gets higher and higher on the agenda, and we see that also in the way it gets into the call topics. But definitely it was started from the beginning as a priority. Next slide, please. Coming to Made in Europe and the structure of the ESIR. In general, what we aim at is connecting the high-level targets, right? Which you see there on the left side, which fit to also policy objectives. And in the context of Horizon Europe, you see there the European Green Deal on the left side, circular, climate-neutral manufacturing. You see there also an economy that works for people and SMEs. You had a presentation on EFFRA before, and EFFRA is within the project portfolio of the Factories of the Future Partnership. So it's a very important component. And of course, people, they do the transition. They do also the green transition. So it's very important in terms of awareness, in terms of skills, etc. A Europe fit for the digital age. For sure, digital and green goes together. Twin transition is one of the headlines in Horizon Europe in terms of the call topics. Under Destination 1, and definitely, and last but not least, manufacturing competitiveness. We're talking manufacturing in the European context, so quality, responsiveness are key characteristics, which lead us to this middle stack there, the specific objectives, where on top you see excellence, responsiveness, smart factories, supply chains, value networks, being really the core of what the Factories of the Future Partnership has been promoting, and what Made in Europe is promoting. But definitely there, and if you go to the next slide, you see some highlights there. You see circular products and climate neutral manufacturing as one of the 4 specific objectives that we have put specifically for Made in Europe in the ESIR. You see, of course, the clear connection with the European Green Deal there on the left. It's a very important pillar. And on the right-hand side, you see this list of key enablers and technologies that actually feed all the developments that are required to have that impact. And impact goes to excellence, goes to circular, so goes to many cross-cutting impacts, but it's a very cross-disciplinary research and innovation package or program that we have there. From the hardcore manufacturing processes, how to shape materials, the whole encapsulation in mechatronics and smart machines around it, with handling systems, with interfactory logistics, but also coming to the green transition, also the demanufacturing, remanufacturing, recycling technologies, life cycle analysis approaches. Then the simulation and modeling, which really digital twins, which include really this life cycle and the environmental characteristics of the systems and the products that are being manufactured, which all leads us to this digital transition with real-time communication in order to keep track what's happening, in order to keep track what's happened with a product along its life cycle. So you can assess the secondary use in a second life of a product. You can assess how much energy has been consumed by the product or the system or the machine, in which conditions. Which brings us to maybe a buzzword there, the artificial intelligence. But that really connects to also the twin transition in order to deploy artificial intelligence for making the systems more performant during their life cycle, but also in the future, to be able to design systems in a more green, impactful way. And the last point there on the bottom there is new business and organizational approaches. There is, of course, a business aspect to resource efficiency as well, which we have to also explore. That links to regulatory constraints or opportunities. Of course, there's a lot of regulation involved in green, in energy and all that. So definitely that connects all these very important aspects, not to say the least about the skills and standards. Standards in order to give guidance to companies, but also to researchers, how to implement the different systems so that they can also work together and they can work in an understood way by everybody. Next slide, please. So in our ESIR, we have these as like enabling technologies. The specific objectives make them more channeled. We have a set of research and innovation objectives. And in the next slide, you see also highlighted there. Next slide, please. Yes, the ones that are really the most prominent in terms of the green transition. But it's absolutely clear that it's a very cross-cutting impact that you want to achieve, so that across the ESIR you would see somehow a link to energy efficiency as well. But definitely there's really a core part of it that is dedicated to that, which leads us to maybe the next slide, because of course the ESIR is one thing. Call topics is another thing. So there's a process that converts requirements, opportunities that EFFRA throughout consultations has put on the table, which is then processed in a iterative process with the European Commission, involving also the member states into these calls for proposals. And in order just to give you the interrelation from this ESIR to the call topic side, I thought I'd just put the headlines there of the past call topics. So on the next slide, you see, and you can go actually to the next slide, which highlights a few parts there. The calls 21 that were referred to as the Made in Europe partnership had for sure one on top, which is there on AI and enhanced robotics, which with also linked to the AI and data and robotics partnership. But there you see zero defect towards zero waste. Now, zero defect has been already a red line throughout the Factories of the Future partnership before. And there you see one of the impact of having this transition, that there the call topic is zero defect towards zero waste. So really connecting the two strands, the true tracks together. Actually, the other one that is there on beneath, laser-based for green manufacturing. So laser-based technologies, which is very specific, with a link to the photonics partnership as well. But there in the call topic, it's very clear that, you know, also energy efficiency, green, environmental sustainability was really highlighted very strongly. The other one is on bio-based materials, which again has an environmental, you know, characteristic or touching point to it. One that is also very clearly connecting the enabling technology, artificial intelligence, as I mentioned before, to the environmental sustainability is the 107 artificial intelligence for sustainable agile manufacturing. So there's a batch of projects that are now in grant agreement preparation to be started well within a few months. So we're really looking forward how this also somehow combined approach, like the zero defect, zero waste, the photonics laser-based green manufacturing, how this will be translated in the projects, their objectives, and last but not the least, the demonstrators and the use cases, because that's very important. With the call 2020, we see maybe a less big bulb there, but we see the ICT innovation for manufacturing SMEs, the IFRMS one, and we see definitely digital tools to support engineering in circular economy. So there we see the digital enabler to design and make the circular economy work. It involves, I mean, there's notion also of the digital product passport, things that also probably we will see also in future call topics. These are important components. Next slide, please. I will not go into details about the next work program because I'm not supposed to. EFFRA is not supposed to expose information about the draft being circulated or being under discussion. I just for the sake also of pointing at it, put some headlines there of some of the priorities that we have expressed towards the Commission in the whole course towards discussing the next work program, and definitely circular is also very prominent in there in terms of retaining and upgrading the value of capital equipment, of machinery, of very valuable components, so that really circular is not only about, for instance, secondary materials and taking trashing material, then seeing what can be recycled, but also retaining value or upgrading components and having the smaller closed loop in circular there, which involves also the data that needs to be collected for it and the engineering product service approaches you need for that. Next slide, please. So then a few pointers to information that you, while having this presentation there and the available links to stakeholder events that we organized, to link these policy objectives and the directions with examples also of Factories of the Future projects, because definitely there is really a wealth of information and dynamics already involved in the Factories of the Future partnership that leads and supports these objectives throughout in Made in Europe. So definitely you're welcome to have a look there. Next slide, please. Then I thought, for the sake of the example, to show that indeed from the Factories of the Future, this is one of the projects that was actually presented at one of these stakeholder events. That's the Denim project, which is from the call topic on energy efficient manufacturing systems management from the 2020, so the last call on the Factories of the Future, where you see actually on the right hand side these different enablers, the real-time data connection, event-driven analysis, so being really close to the ball when it comes to what's happening in the factories, and having then a holistic approach to energy efficiency using really that data and possible AI approaches, but also addressing skills. And on the next slide, you would also see really on the bottom the digital thread, having secure integration of IT systems, having edge intelligence, hybrid cloud systems, data management in a scalable way to generate with digital twins the intelligence that can be then be expressed through dashboards that can be used for prognosis and planning for, in this case, energy efficiency. But of course, these are all technologies that can be used in different ways also in terms of having resilience of flexibility. But in this project, like the Denim project, is used for energy efficiency, really in a holistic way. Next slide, please. Coming to a conclusion, there's a lot of legacy in the Factories of Future program, and we're really going forward along this track also of the green transition in Horizon Europe through the Made in Europe partnership. We have a website and a portal which includes the previous projects and also some other related projects, even on national regional level. We're promoting that. Also here you will find some links. We also, and on the right-hand side, refers to a video that's on pathways. So we're keen to have pathways that show the transition also in what you can say a moderate innovative approach to really a very high advanced innovative approach, including AI, including connectivity, involving data spaces, in order to bring that innovation into a context. So that's definitely one of the headlines we're working on. Next slide, please. For your information, I mentioned that business aspects and legal aspects also really play a role in all this, definitely also in the green transition. So if you're interested, please have a look at the website and the link that is included here. If you get the presentation, when you get the presentation on the 24th of May, there's a webinar on that. Next slide, please. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris, for this presentation of the EFFRA and Made in Europe partnership. If there are some questions in the chat or some hand raised or not? Can someone tell me, because I can't see the screen? If there is no question, there is one.
I have a question. You mentioned that you cannot talk about next topics, so I will not ask you about that directly. But we know from the circulating versions that metal material is much less addressed in 23, 24 compared to 21 and 22. And I would like to ask you if this is aligned with the general roadmap of EFFRA.
You said metals, right? I got that right.
Yes, metal. Okay. Apart from the topics recycling metal.
Right. So with respect to circular, as mentioned before, the pointer to circular is rather to systems and retaining the functionality of systems or upgrading systems for second life rather than the materials aspect. So that's correct, that there the material focus is less. In terms of indeed materials, there may be indeed a biomaterial orientation. There has been some discussions about that, where the focus should be. That's something that one can anticipate, that apparently there's a big need for a bio-call topic within Made in Euro or beyond. But from the ESIR point of view, I mean, metal as such, it's not that we're a materials-oriented partnership, so to say. So the point is about manufacturing, processing materials with intelligent systems. The material processing side of things are more expressed towards quality requirements, perhaps, like high precision, like complexity in the product, which can have impact on, or which can relate to the material composition that can be challenging in order to obtain high precision, or like the processes to shape complex products, that for metal products, there's particular technologies that can be beneficial for that. But the pointer on materials is not an initial pointer. It's more about the quality obtained for the project, or the quality obtained from the manufacturing process on process level. If that's an answer to your question, I can indeed not discuss in a detailed way whatever call topic that is being drafted. So if this is not too cryptic, I hope it's
okay.
sufficient for now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chris, for this answer. There's other questions for Chris, or can we move on to the second part of this second part of the webinar? Doesn't seem so. Thank you once again, Chris, for your intervention. And let's move on. Thank you. And let's move on to EIT Manufacturing with Joël Rosenberg.
I put it on the screen. So, well, the previous presentation presented a lot of things that I would share completely, and I'm going to focus on what is EIT Manufacturing. We are European. We are created by. We have been created by the European Union. Which creates our parent company, which is EIT. EIT stands for European Institute for Innovation and Technology, and we are one of the branches of EIT dedicated to the development of manufacturing in Europe. So as an introduction, I would say that the manufacturing industry is a global base for prosperity and key to Europe's economic, social, and environmental sustainability. This sector is the main driver of industrial innovation, job creation, and growth for European society. So some figures to share with you. manufacturing in Europe is 2.1 million enterprises. It's a turnover of more than 7 trillions, and it represents 32 million jobs. Of course, we have to cope with different challenges which comes with manufacturing. So we have to cope with digital transformation. We have to cope with sustainability, of course, and with competition. Our vision, the vision of EIT Manufacturing, that global manufacturing innovation is led by Europe, and that we have to enforce that. And our mission is to bring together manufacturing actors across Europe to integrate innovation and education for an entrepreneurial and sustainable Europe. So we have, in fact, a program which is a 7 years program with a ramp-up phase of 2 years, and then a growth phase of 5 years. And this could be duplicated once, so we could have a program of twice 7 years, which means 14 years. And for our program, we have a 400 million budget until 2026. We are a public-private partnership, holistic, with use holistic and test methods focused on solution to high-value manufacturing challenges. Our actions is based on 3 pillars: innovation, education, and business creation, and we have also a 4th action, which is which are focused on those 3 actions: innovation, education, and business creation, on less developed areas of Europe. So we are trying to push them and to enforce them. In practice, we are dealing with innovation, which is launch, develop, and grow innovation. We are dealing with education, which is empower, engage, and connect talents and workforce through education to the skilled jobs. And we have a 3rd activity, which is business creation, which empower entrepreneurship, and which is to develop businesses. We have 5 strategic objectives: so competitive manufacturing, skills and social sustainability, powerful manufacturing innovation ecosystems, globally competitive and resilient manufacturing, environmentally sustainable manufacturing, and manufacturing fit for the digital age. With 3 main focus, which are prosperity, planet, and people. So in prosperity, we try to raise competitiveness, to meet new customer demands, to leverage new tech, and to boost startups. People, we are trying to upskill the workforce, to ensure access to the right talent, to gain high retention, and of course to enforce diversity. And for the planet, of course, we are trying to enforce how to reduce resource use, to lower emissions, and to improve sustainability. We have 4 domains that we call the 4 focus areas. We call our flagships. First one is flexible production systems for competitive manufacturing. The second one is low environmental footprint systems and circular economy for green manufacturing. Third one is digital and collaborative solutions for innovating manufacturing ecosystems. And the fourth one, and last one, is human-machine co-working for socially sustainable manufacturing. That's our organization. So the main thing that you have to know about EIT Manufacturing is that our headquarters is located in Paris-Saclay. So the headquarters for the whole European organization of EIT Manufacturing, and that we have 5 and now six regional, activities, and that France is teamed with Spain and Portugal in what we call the CLC West, the Collocation Center West, and the center of this collocation is based in San Sebastian in Spain. We have more than 80 partners now from 17 countries. So we have industrial partners, which are members of EIT Manufacturing. We have universities, and we are RTOs. So in France, we have Atos, ESI, Aerospace Valley. We have FIVS. We have also Arrêt Métier, Centrale Nantes, and INP Grenoble. And we have, as RTOs, we have the CEA. So we have three model of partnership. We have the members, full members. Sorry, the full members, which is a very formal accession process, and these members are our governance. They have the full voting right in the General Assembly of EIT Manufacturing Association, and through their vote, they approve or disapprove our programs. And we have two other levels of partnership. We have the activity partners, which are the partners which are sustained by EIT Manufacturing, and we have the network partners, which are organizations like BPI France or France Additive or Alliance Industrie du Futur, or as name some network partners, a French company. What we think in the EIT Manufacturing is that innovation is a great way to create value and impact, and we are supporting European manufacturing community of companies and tech organizations to industrialize innovating projects. And I'm going to detail a little more what we are doing in the innovation. So we are enforcing, creating value and impact with 4 points: ensure adoption of innovations for manufacturers and end users, increase market traction and robustness of solution to scale, ensure market reach and exploitation, and explore and test go-to-market strategy to hit the right targets. So what can we do for you? We have innovative program that which are developed through calls for projects that we are implementing every year in EIT Manufacturing. So I'm going to detail a little what was a call for proposals 2023, which end 10 days ago and end of April. And this call for proposals had 4 core thematics, which are on the left side of of this slide. First thematics was artificial intelligence and digital twins for manufacturing systems. The second thematics was smart technologies for circular and green manufacturing. The third thematics was collaborative robots and solutions for flexible manufacturing. And the fourth one was automation for human-centered factories. I select some real case from give you example of what we are supporting. So the first case I selected was the Zero Defects 4.0, using AI and big data to predict quality defects and save raw materials. So the challenge was high level of energy and raw materials waste due to quality defects. And the solutions was digital tools to predict defects. The tool leverage artificial intelligence and big data for consistent quality and predicts quality defects before they occur. Benefits were significant reduction of waste material and energy. And in the pilot plant, an estimate 245 tons of wood could be saved annually. The second case I select was Canvas, a common standard for Industry 4.0. The challenge was that fragmented industry landscape, making interoperability, which are machines speaking to the same language, a challenge, and slow adoption of Industry 4.0 technologies. So the solution was to implement a user-friendly tool and methodology to plan, test, and deploy the interface of manufacturing equipment to ensure machine interoperability. Of course, the benefits were promoting one common standard, a free open source user-friendly toolkit, accelerating Industry 4.0, and of course, by that, reducing the energy consumption, reducing the waste. The third case I select was V-Machina, which is a virtual training in maintenance and repair from anywhere. The challenge was to offer high-quality training regardless of position in a company or location. And the solution was cutting-edge virtual manufacturing environment for teaching maintenance and repair, which brings together people and machines in a safe and virtual environment. The benefits were safe, quick, easy to access at lower cost, reducing inequalities between population and regions, and support the adoption of new technologies. So the conclusion is that our vision is global manufacturing should be led by Europe, and that are the goals that EIT Manufacturing wants to achieve by 2030. Green, innovating, and the right skills. So we want to have 30% of material use. 30% of material use is circular, 60% of sustainable production practices. We want to create 260 new solutions. We want to invest 325 million in European innovation and technology ventures. We want to train 50,000 people. And we want to create and support 1,000 startups. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Joël. I can hear me. No, that's okay. Thank you very much, Joël, for the presentation and the information regarding EIT Manufacturing. I invite all of us in attending this meeting to have a more serious look at your website and activities that EIT Manufacturing can provide. Is there some question for Joël in the chat? I don't see in the chat, but maybe some people are waiting for asking question orally. It doesn't seem. So thank you, Joël, for the intervention.
What I would say last thing, so we have just ended a call for proposals, but we will have another call next year, starting early in February, and we may have a second call this year in September. So stay tuned at our website to get to know more about our call for proposals.
Thank you, thank you. Le message est passé. Let's move on to the next and last part of this webinar dedicated to Industry 5.0. So we have the pleasure to have with us César Dro from DG RTD in the European Commission. So before you starting, Industry 5.0 is a pretty new concept for most of us. And but Industry 5.0 starts attracting more and more attention and settling in Horizon Europe calls and European Commission researches. So why should European industry move towards to Industry 5.0, whereas most of companies still try to understand what Industry 4.0 is? So we are going to discuss this concept and all these aspects with you. And before you start, I invite all the participants to have a look at the European Commission researches that bring highlights to this concept. Please, César, thank you to be here this morning, and now you have the floor.
Thank you, Loïc. I hope everyone can hear me well. My name is César Dro. I am working at the European Commission in DG Research and Innovation in the Chief Economist Unit. And today I'll be presenting you main perspectives from a report by the expert group on the economic and societal impact of research innovation called ESIR. This expert group provides thinking for the European Commission Research and Innovation in terms of futures and in terms of actors. For industries, for regions, for research institutions, for civil society. And it had been very hard at work in the last 3 years, notably during the COVID pandemic, where a lot of changes have happened in terms of government, in terms of society, in terms of economy as well, which gave several policy briefs on the Protect, Prepare and Transform Europe for recovery, on transforming post-COVID. So what kind of perspectives could happen, like for with dedicated papers for nations, regions and cities, for global value chains, for universities, and most recently a reflection on deeper work on the Industry 5.0, which is what I will present you today. So the perspectives that are at the basis of this paper are really about our planet and what is happening currently. First of all, that we are reaching tipping points. We are overstepping planetary boundaries in our consumption, in our production, in our emissions. But there are also other aspects, such as an economic reset due to the most recent upheavals that have confronted us to an era of crisis, in a sense. Many of us have felt a bit a certain panic, a certain anxiety step in the last few years at events that we can't always control and maybe sometimes not even plan. Also a change of history becoming back with questions stemming from the West, stemming from the East, stemming also from our borders. Also a push from the bottom with activism, with a more and more engagement of civil society, of people who are also workers, consumers, and feel that they want to have much more say in the future we want. And lastly, also an evolution in the thinking within governments, within institutions, notably with the European Green Deal. So, so the European Green Deal has been rather well presented by our colleague a bit earlier, but as you can see, is overall a strategy encompassing vastly different but complementary areas of policy. and therefore is extremely relevant for industry in many areas, from transport to food to energy, to the whole concept of a circular economy. So on Industry 4.0 and Industry 5.0, we have an evolution more than a break. The point is that Industry 4.0 is very much technological. It does promise enhanced efficiency. There are digital, there's the Internet of Things, there's artificial intelligence, and it's very much centered about the emergence of cyber-physical objects. But it does lack a few things, notably on circular features and positive feedback loops for industry transformation, given that it does not take into account in its inception the issues of society and the environment, which are the two other points. In the societal dimension, there is the well-being of workers, social inclusion, and for example, also technologies that do not substitute humans. We have all heard about the great replacement of people, the obsolescence of work, of jobs, and the regenerative environmental dimension through the elimination of the use of fossil fuels, energy efficiency, but also the restoration of biodiversity, and ensure a thriving of our economic system in their interdependence with natural system, because this is at the core of what we are. We are dependent on our planet. This is why we need an Industry 5.0. And to summarize very broadly a comparison between an Industry 5.0 that would take the strength, but also answer the weaknesses of Industry 4.0, we would have an Industry 4.0 that is centered around the enhanced efficiency through digital technologies, while an Industry 5.0 creates change, uses this technology to look at its place in the environment. In the Industry 4.0, as it is centered around technology, it would become in Industry 5.0 a more people-centric, a more enterprise-centric, where companies would know their role and would know their presence and take it into account in order to ensure the application of their responsibility throughout their value chain. They would, for example, support alternative modes of technology governance for sustainability. And finally, from an Industry 4.0 that is very much based on an old consumption, on an old optimization of business model approach with a minimization of cost and maximization of profit for shareholders, we would have an Industry 5.0 that has an approach of competitiveness with sustainability, with indicators to support this. So a shift also in indicators for each industrial ecosystem on their progress, on well-being, on resilience, and overall sustainability, so that the creative destruction that is very much at the basis of our economy remains creative and not only destructive. Now, on Industry 5.0 itself, it is very much the point is very much for industry to take up its role in the sustainability transition, so that it is not only from the civil society to protest or the government to impose regulations, but very much to develop an approach that incorporates all actors into towards these specific features that you can see now. Specifically, for Industry 5.0, responsibility at the value chain and at the industrial ecosystem level is very much important. Ecosystem here refers to the industrial ecosystem, in the sense that we're taking into consideration learning from the pandemic, from the issues with the disruption of supply chains, and we need to design an industrial system that is more resilient to future shocks and stresses, while also integrate European Green Deal social and environmental principles, such as, for raw material resources, to ensure that they are not at the source of slavery, or that there are not other human rights or environmental abuses. There is a second feature that is the regenerative aspect, the circular economy by design. So to remove not to remove pollution and waste, but not in the sense of eliminating them, but design them out in the sense that one's weight is another one's raw material. Keep products and materials in productive use and circulation with, for example, an iron and steel industry that produces, for example, rare earth, gypsum, phosphorus, all of which can be used in order by the tech industry, by the construction industry, and by the agricultural industry as fertilizers. The point also on the third one is to be self-sustaining and adaptive. That does fit well with the two previous ones in the sense that the reflection that is at the basis of this industry is a dialogue between actors, between industrial actors, between regions, between governments, but it is also about the industry designing also its evolution and its future as well. Going through the three last points, decentralized to build on the decentralization that goes with digitalization that creates resilience, less of one single vulnerable point. Digitalized with purpose as well to reduce the amount of electronic waste, for example, or also to allow for some innovation, but not necessarily support every innovation regardless of its impact. And finally, measuring what matters in the terms of changing the kind of standards and metrics that are used for evaluating the progress of the industry. So we'll go through the three main actors of this Industry 5.0 as they are outlined in the paper. Regions and research institutions have a role to play through innovation systems, through local transformation strategy that take into account the local specificities, and more than some of you may know about the smart specialization strategies of the EU regional cohesion policy, this would go even further in the sense that it would also build on ecosystems, this time biological ones, and the specificities of populations and cultures that are present in each region. Lastly, ESIR made a specific paper on the role of research institutions and the necessities that they need to redesign themselves and be helped in redesigning by governance in order for them to be fit for supporting a digital and green transition within Industry 5.0. So for the government 5.0, ESIR has identified two main strengths of intervention on policy processes with an emphasis on becoming more flexible, with allowing for experimentation, for embracing risk within public policy, but also supporting companies, supporting research institutions in their transformations by creating, for example, a one-stop shop for companies to interact with the public sector on industrial transformation and increase cross-pollination and transfer between industrial ecosystems. On compliance processes, this is the part where the metrics come in, where the bureaucracy, where the regulatory framework is very important. There are more details in the paper. I'll encourage you to read it. We'll send it to you as follow-up. But vertical and horizontal coherence in governance is also very much important. Vertical coherence means collaboration between government levels, so from the regional to the international level, and horizontal coherence meaning across policy areas, so that an education policy can find its place in an industry policy as well. Lastly, and I'm suspecting this is the most interesting aspect for you, industry is very much at the center of what Industry 5.0 is. You'll tell me that's evident. I'll say that is good to hear, but it is an actor that will be an actor of its own transformation. And as for personal development, this is always rather complex. It will require, according to ESIR, a certain rethinking of value chains, of the relationship to environment and to the relationship to society. In terms of value chains, to reduce the overall carbon and material footprint of the supply chain, to ensure due diligence through mutual certification and next in-line reflections, and to embrace also possibilities for technological circularity, in addition to the waste and energy circularity. For the environment, it would be nice to improve the paradigm of energy efficiency to a resource efficiency first principle, and again harness the benefits of Industry 4.0, of which we're not breaking but evolving, into creating and using technologies that help us find a place in our environments and in our industrial ecosystems as well. Lastly, for the societal role, the rather broad term of corporate governance 5.0 is mainly an aspect in terms of reflection, internal reflection within industries, within industrial associations, to look at what kind of skills and mindsets for new and complex business models, but also in terms of what kind of policy and measurement of economic activity can support this reflection and help encourage and monitor the progress of these industries by the government. So financial metrics, for example, to optimize, currently look into return on material assets, return on invested energy, return on natural assets, and return on and value of human capital. And this would be an interesting evolution in this area. That's it. This is obviously a very future-oriented reflection that is not in itself the prelude to a new policy by the European Commission. These are reflection work, and there will be more consultation, more discussion with industrial stakeholders, with national governments, with regions as well, and the whole idea of integrating this approach, or a portfolio approach, through across governments and across policy areas is very much information, and will greatly benefit from any feedback. So whenever you have an opportunity to interact with Commission services, but also with national contact points on consultations, we really encourage you to do so. And should you have more, should you wish for more resources, you can find them here. The short URL is for easier of note. And should you request some additional information, or if you wish to ask specific questions, feel free to reach to us at RTD ESIR. Now, if you have any question, I'll be glad to take them.
Thank you very much, César, for the presentation. I have a question in the chat, and I think it will be the last and the only one, because we have already passed 12. The question is how sovereignty of European value chain is taken into account in Industry 5.0, mainly how digitization impacts sovereignty. Do you have an answer to that?
So from my understanding, there are really two aspects to this. The first one on the value chains. Sorry?
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, so the first one on value chains is very much linked to the wake-up call that we got recently from Russia, to be fair, on the dependencies that we have in terms of raw materials and energy. And it is part of the core strategy of outlined in the proposal for Industry 5.0 that a sustainable industry would encourage circularity and the breaking of these dependencies. So as such, the sovereignty aspect in terms of resources are very much not yet in terms of digitalization, but the terms of sovereignty of resource and value chains is is taken into account. And while we do live in a globalized world, so it is very difficult to break off trades so easily. The objective of reaching certainly a circular economy that will also be helped in the case of energy through renewables, for example, is very much a concern and very much an approach that is already that is at the core of it. Of Industry 5.0. Now, in terms of the sovereignty through digitalization, I suppose you mean more reflection regarding data and intellectual property. In this stage, this is not the main focus of the Industry 5.0 because information in itself. Information in itself is an approach, is not a resource that runs dry. It's like if you share an information, if the information I'm sharing with you is not an information I have lost. So as such, the question of sovereignty in this case is more related to intellectual property and technology sovereignty, which is a concern that is being thought about by ESIR, and we will have discussions on this topic in upcoming papers, probably by the end of 2022. But it is not so much a concern of Industry 5.0 because the concept is really about, well, first of all, an European ecosystem where the transfer of information and IP would be under a similar structure. I mean, the same structure for all of Europe. I hope I've answered to your question.
Well, thank you very much for this answer. We will conclude now this webinar because it's already 12, as I said. Thank you very much once again to the firstly to the speakers that were available today, this morning. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Virle. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Joël. And thank you, César. Thank you, Mathilde, as well. Very interesting discussion, very interesting information. I invite all the participants to have a look at all the websites and documents that have been shared by the speakers. And if you have any questions, you have some emails or you have mine, and you can send me questions and I will put you in touch with the speaker you want. Thank you very much. Have a great day. I can turn on my camera to wish you a good day. And see you very soon in the European bubble. And long live Europe for the Europe Day. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank
you very much. Bye. Goodbye.
See you very soon. Bye.